Another edition of Orange and Blue today on the verge of OTAs open to us on Thursday, but on this Wednesday, Mace, we talk about a talented tight end in Greg Dulcich. We know he's talented. We know he can ball. We just don't know if he can stay healthy.
Yeah, he stayed healthy through OTAs last year. Of course, that was something he failed to do as a rookie in 2022. So everything looked smiles and sunshine for Greg Dulcich going through the spring and early summer and then into the midsummer. And then when you got to week 1, there came the hamstring again. He ended up only playing 2 games last year. He's now missed 22 of possible 34 games. And Cecil, with Greg Dulcich, I think you view anything you get from him as a bonus, but it's not something that you plan on. Or if it's your plan, you don't do so without having someone in reserve in whom you're confident, which is why you and I have talked about Lucas Kroll quite a bit this offseason.
Right, and maybe Kroll is that backup plan. In our Kroll show, Mace, we talked about how they didn't draft the tight end. Well, they didn't draft the tight end because Kroll's got some upside, and Greg Dulcich can play. Like, it's no mystery. We're not wondering what he can do. We know what he can do, and with Sean Payton and the actual Sean Payton offense being back, it's kind of exciting.
Yeah, the ball going down the middle again. The ball going down the seam. Going down the seam, that's where things can really get interesting for Greg Dulcich in a positive way if he can stay healthy. Because he's going to be somebody who probably operates down the seam and operates in space from the snap because he has lost some weight. And we'll get more into that as we talk about his injury and his recovery. But this means you're not really looking at Greg Dulcich and expecting much from him in line. He becomes somebody who operates in space. Perhaps that is part of the rationale of re-signing Adam Troutman, is knowing that if Dulcich is in the mix, it's in more of a specialized role rather than someone who is potentially an every down tight end who can go in space but also operate in line.
Yeah, scouts call it a seam ripper. And you bring up something very interesting, like Greg Dulcich could not lead the team in snaps at the tight end position, but he might lead them in catches and touchdowns.
Mm-hmm. That would be a pretty successful season, I think, if you could have that type of output. I mean, if he is playing 35% of the snaps, if he's in that specialized pass catching in space role, maybe becoming a joker is something that was first talked about him about this time last year when the Broncos had OTAs. If he could, with those limited reps, stay healthy, you're talking about somebody who could have 40 catches and 500 yards and 5 touchdowns. I think that would be a sign that's in the right direction. But the other thing is it'd be a sign that he was healthy as well. Like that's the key thing. And again, you don't ignore tight end, specifically pass catching tight end in the draft and in free agency if you don't believe in your contingency plan. And that's why I think the Broncos do have a belief in Lucas Kroll if Greg Dulcich isn't all the way back.
Yeah, and just think about that, Mason. It's not all about us, but we did a Lucas Kroll show. We haven't done a Greg Dulcich show until now, and this is when Joe Lombardi, when you and I talked to him at the end of the year, Joe Lombardi said this. I'm not going to spoil what he says, but I'm going to play it. So just let's all take note of what Lombardi says about Greg Dulcich right here.
Yeah, I think the trainers say that some of the stuff he's been dealing with, is new. So you're kind of hoping it was just bad luck, but he's got a great skill set, and something that if and we expect he can, stay healthy, he'll be a big part of what we do. I mean, he can run, he can catch, and be a valuable piece for us, when he's playing.
He'll be a big part of what we do.
If he can stay healthy.
It's a big if.
Yes, it is a big if. But you don't make that plan if you don't have confidence in the contingency plan. So Dulcich as a pass catching tight end is plan A, but if he's plan A, you have to be securing your plan B. just because you don't know if he can stay healthy. That's the variable. The other injury that Lombardi referred to, of course, to go back to last year, Dulcich had the hamstring injury in week 1 against the Las Vegas Raiders. He goes on IR, comes back for Thursday Night Football week 6 against Kansas City, has another hamstring injury. That keeps him out until December. And then they bring him off IR to start the ramp-up period to where he could be back on the roster. It was the week of the Detroit Lions game. And immediately on the first day, he injures his foot. And Dulcich actually explained the foot injury and kind of why it happened when he talked right after the season ended.
It was weird. It was just like of course it had to happen the week that I was, coming back to practice. Just some weird swelling. I, have unfortunately like some bony feet, and then my cleat just kind of irritated it in a really kind of freaky way. And yeah, it's a bummer.
I'd never heard that. It is a bummer. I'd never heard that before.
Bony feet and irritated. Well, it tells you he was working hard to get back.
Aren't all feet bony, though? I mean, there's a lot of bones down there.
And if you're a hobbit, you got big feet, like fat feet, right? No hobbits on the Broncos roster, though, but I guess he does have bony feet. And irritated it by working so hard to come back. And we know what it means to him, Mace. When I was watching those videos again that you sent over, because we had talked to Dulcich at the end of the year, and I'd forgotten
26 bones, by the way.
26. There you go.
According to this, 33 joints, 26 bones, and more than 100 muscles, tendons, and ligaments that all work together to bear weight, allow for locomotion, and transmit force. That's from the National Institutes of Health.
That's a lot that can go wrong in one spot, and you have two of them as a bipedal human. But when I watched Greg again on those videos, man,
did you say bipedal?
Yes. When I watched Dulcich, I was like, you can tell how much it hurts him.
Yeah.
We've been around him enough. Like, you can tell how it hurts that he can't do what he wants to do.
It's frustrating. And you basically, you hear the insults, right? I mean, if you've got, unless you've really put your head in the sand, unfortunately, you hear people saying, oh, he's made of glass, right? Bust, can't stay healthy. I refuse to refer to a player as a bust when it's all about injury. Okay. It's just misfortune. And oh, by the way, Greg Dulcich did not have an injury history coming out of UCLA. That's another thing.
That's another misconception.
Yeah. Jake Butt falls to round 5 in 2017 and the Broncos take him. Well, he's there because he has an ACL, right? And he never gets all the way back, as it turns out. Greg Dulcich, drafted in round 3, there were no medical red flags on him coming out of UCLA. So you start asking with the hamstring, okay, was it weight? Is it the elevation? There's some thought that you get dehydrated easier when you're at elevation and you're in a dry climate, that maybe he wasn't hydrated properly. Look, the Broncos have been through all those types of things, trying to figure out the riddle of why he has hamstring injuries. OTAs, training camp first year, another injury, and another couple injuries that year. 2 hamstring injuries as a rookie. I mean, it's frustrating because we saw the glimpses. I mean, look back at his first game against the Chargers back in the 2022 season on Monday Night Football, and he gets wide open, but he looks the part. He gets open, makes the play. We saw the flashes. He can look really good if he can stay healthy. He's a plus player as a pass catcher. Again, not somebody you're going to want as a blocker, but based on the size that he's at compared to where he was before, I don't think that's in the cards anyway.
Right. And something Greg Dulcich did talk about, again, in the last day in the locker rooms open, Dulcich talked about hamstring feeling good and losing weight and all that, and here's what he had to say.
Yeah, I think, there's a lot of factors, I think, that kind of, could go into it, and that's why we were trying to think of all the things and, leave no stone unturned. That was kind of the plan with, losing some weight. It worked because my hamstring feels great, and it's just, ended how it did.
I don't think you need him as a blocker.
No.
Honestly, you need him as a weapon. And you know what? We talked about it in one of our Bo Nix shows. Bo Nix's favorite guy is the open guy. Why was Devon Vele his number one target at rookie minicamp? Because Vele was open.
Yeah.
Troy Franklin's there too, for sure. But you know what? You know what Greg Dulcich is going to do, Mace? He's going to get open, and that means Nix is going to find him.
Yeah, he's going to get open, and it's going to excite everybody, but everyone's going to have tempered enthusiasm just because you're going to be wondering when the other shoe is going to drop. And that's why for Greg Dulcich, the most important thing is hoping that the loss of weight and the training mechanisms the Broncos have put on him can prevent him from having another injury. He's probably one more hamstring away from being just they wash their hands and they move on. That's the unfortunate thing. But if he goes out there in the next 4 weeks, Cease, and has another hamstring injury, I think it's curtains. So he's got a lot riding on this, but it's really got nothing to do with anything that's within his control. That's the frustrating part. Like, it's whether he succeeds or fails is largely going to be out of his control because it's going to be health related. It's not because he doesn't have the skill set. And you hate that for him, but that's just that's the bottom line. I don't think his viability on the roster can withstand another hamstring injury. I don't think that's possible.
Well, and you were the first person in the media, Mace, to say that his spot on the roster is not safe.
Mm-hmm.
Like, not at all. If he goes out there and it's another hamstring, even before we get to minicamp, like, again, we don't want any of that.
Yeah.
But that's a now decision. You might be, picking up the phone or seeing who's cut from other teams, like these are all possibilities for the Broncos. If Dulcich goes out there and gets banged up again, we hope it doesn't happen. And it's zero question for anyone who's like, can Greg Dulcich play? We already know the answer is yes. And that's what makes it more frustrating, Mace. It's not like Jail Skinner, right? When we talked about on yesterday's show about like, hey, we don't know. Let's see what it can do. Like, we've seen Dulcich enough. It's there. It's just got to be there consistently. And that comes back to his health.
Yeah. And if it's not there and if he's not healthy, where do you go? Right. I mean, who's out there? Logan Thomas. I mean, the former quarterback, he's got injury issues of his own, right?
Right.
I mean, the last time we saw him in a Bronco game, it was against the Broncos week 2 when Washington came in, and he suffered a concussion on that Kareem Jackson hit, and that was the start of things for Kareem Jackson as well. But I mean, that's the thing. Like, there aren't really good options out there right now. I mean, I guess,
right.
Do you call up Jimmy Graham and try to wring a little bit more out of him at age 37? I'm 37.
Yeah. We'll leave that reference alone. I'll bring up this, Mace.
Yes, he is 30. No, he literally is 37 years of age. Not the other 37.
Not the clerks 30 in a row.
Do you think the thing is, like, it's just the younger generation wouldn't get it. You think someone has gone up to Audric Estime and said, "You're 37"?
Yeah, nobody would get that.
He's jersey number 37.
I'm going to bring up something though.
Do we want to explain that to Estime when we see him in the locker room sometime this year? The meaning of 37.
No, not at all. Especially because remember he told us he just picked it. Like, there wasn't much available. But I'll bring this up, Mace, because you broke the
try
glass.
Try not to choose your number on your way through the parking lot.
There we go. See, as Hans Gruber would say, shoot the glass. You already broke this, so I'm going to break it. And I didn't want to turn the show into this, but I will. Taysom Hill.
Whoo!
Saying Jimmy Graham, I'm looking over like, okay, what do you trade the Panthers for Ian Thomas? They'll probably cut Ian Thomas anyway. We've talked about, other options that would Isaiah Likely, who I love with Baltimore. They're not going to get rid of him. You look at other places around the league and you're like, where can you get that guy?
Mm-hmm.
Sean already had that guy, and his name's Taysom Hill.
You'd have to trade for him.
Yeah. Would you want that?
The problem with Taysom Hill at this point, though, is how much does he realistically have left? I mean, he's 33, turns 34 during training camp. That's, man.
Now you're giving up more assets. And I'll bring up a guy that just got signed last week, Big Bob Tunyon.
Yeah.
So that Robert Tunyon was out there. You could have got him a week ago, and you didn't.
Yeah, when he went off the market, I was surprised. Now he's like a bigger guy, right? So
right.
You didn't bring back Chris Manhertz. I think you're counting on Adam Troutman and probably Nate Adkins to be more of those blockers. Nate Adkins is going to be perhaps a jack of all trades, fullback, H-back, tight end, whatever. Taysom Hill, I mean, the thing is, he's not a big guy. He's just a joker that you can occasionally move around and line up. Although did he line up at tight end at all last year? Because
doesn't seem like it.
Yeah, like I'm looking at his stat line on Pro Football Reference, and they only list him as a tight end / quarterback in 22. Last year was just quarterback. So,
I'll bring up another name.
5 yards a carry last year for Taysom Hill.
Better than Javonte. I'll bring up another name, Mace. Sorry. It's spicy. And I'm not promoting this, but I'm just saying who would be available in that role.
Mm-hmm.
And I think trade, and I think my man, Howie Roseman, who I love. And I think Alberto Cuebanon.
Bring it back!
Bring it back!
Oh, the legend of Alberto.
The legend. I know how to spell his name.
And Philadelphia did re-sign him.
Yes.
Okay, so let's just talk about that for a moment. The Broncos, of course, traded him last year. He played 4 games for Philadelphia, targeted once, no receptions last year. And they brought him back.
Yeah. Think about that.
But so you'd consider trading for Alberto?
You'd throw Howie a 7th. Howie'd take it all day. You know he'd love it. He'd love it.
Well, I mean, do you just like say what we sent? What was it, a 7th round pick?
Yeah,
that the Broncos got. Oh, man, that'd be funny.
Here's another one.
Broncos country. By the way, Broncos country, and I don't mean to paint the fan base with a broad brush, and I apologize out there for doing so. But the fan base, I'm not sure, knows how to quit Alberto Cuebanon.
It's always kind of what would have been, right?
Because you see the flashes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And even like that last game in the preseason. But the thing is, they decided, as far as that developmental big pass catching tight end who can be a matchup nightmare, who if he's in space, you're physically going, oh crap. They decided they'd rather turn the page with Lucas Kroll than Alberto.
Right.
They made a choice.
I don't blame him for that. Yeah, I don't blame him for that. But if we're talking about Dulcich a little banged up, he's not guaranteed. Who's out there? I'll give you one more. I could do this all day, but one more, Mace, just because you'll know who this is, because we saw him at the Senior Bowl. He's been really good. He hasn't flashed at all in the pros. It's Kenny Yeboah.
Yeah.
With the Jets. He's done literally nothing. Maybe not nothing, Mace. You'll have to check the stats. But Kenny Yeboah, again, we saw him at the Senior Bowl. He is in, and there's a type, right? I know Big Bob Tunyon's kind of a different type, but Yeboah, Ole Miss, undrafted, and a player that's got that size speed combination, 6'3", 250. So he's not a little guy, So what, 4 catches? I'm looking at his career. 4 catches.
4 for 64, including 2 for 28 last year, no touchdowns.
Yeah, so he hasn't done much, but if I'm running the pro scouting department, I'm gonna, hey, what's Kenny Yeboah look like today?
Yeah. The Broncos and Jets, they're pretty frequent partners. They made the Zach Wilson deal, which took weeks to happen. They made the John Franklin Myers deal. So that between Joe Douglas and George Payton, the phone lines work. There might be ill feelings between Sean Payton and Nathaniel Hackett, but between those who are making the trades there, not so much. Yeah, Yeboah would be interesting.
Of guys that would be available and wouldn't cost much. Yeboah is probably going to get cut.
Well, he's going into year 4,
Yeah, because he missed a year. So it's like, okay, of guys that you could get for a decent price, there's really not a lot out there. And by the way, teams are
7th
going to
round
hold on
pick.
to tight ends. Teams are
Yeah.
going to hold on to them. So it's like, all right, could you get a Kenny Yeboah? Yeah, I think you could.
Well, very similar to Albert Okwuegbunam, the Jets decided intentionally to bring him back because they did re-sign him in March.
Okay.
So there's some value there. I mean, it's actually interesting to look at like some of these tight ends that teams brought back. Like I think around the league, maybe there was a little bit of head scratching about the Broncos bringing back Adam Troutman. Well, Troutman's valuable to the Broncos specifically. He's a leader in the tight end room. And of course, he knows what Sean Payton is asking. And so, especially last year, but even for new players coming in, he's the one that kind of turned to kind of decipher some of what Sean is bringing into meetings and so forth. So he serves a very specific purpose, not just on the field where, he's if not your best blocker, one of your better blockers in the room, and he can do just enough as a pass catcher. So sometimes it's just kind of situation, who fits best. The Broncos feel that Adam Troutman fits best, and the Jets feel that Kenny Yeboah still has some untapped potential. That again, it's interesting. They didn't re-sign him like in April. They re-signed him on March 11th. And the Eagles re-signed Albert O pretty early as well.
That's also a message.
It's a message, but at the same time, if that message doesn't result in the player consolidating his place on the roster, then you get toward training camp, toward the end of that, and that's where you maybe pick up the phone if you don't like what you've seen, or if Greg Dulcich is hurt, maybe you see if there's a Yeboah. I do like bringing in tight ends to develop and just see. Like, I mean, off the practice squad somewhere, there's something that I wrote in 2017 where I said I would have taken Mo Alley Cox off of the Colts practice squad.
Yep.
Alley Cox, of course, is a former basketball player, played college ball at VCU. And yeah, it took him a while to get going, but now he's a pretty dependable part of a tight end rotation for the Colts. I mean, he has, he's averaged about 20 catches a year the last few years. So, we're not talking about world beaters here. I don't think George Kittle's walking through the door.
But you can get some help if you need some help. I love going the basketball route as well. I'll bring up Eric Swoop every time. The Broncos were the first team on him, and he never did anything, but he never played college football. Jimmy Graham played 1 year at the U. Eric Swoop down at the U did not play college football. And the Broncos were nosing around him, and then the Colts picked him up, and he had a cup of coffee.
Okay.
But I love those type of, just throw a dart. Hail Mary.
Well, I mean, look at your undrafted players, and I don't know if he's going to help you this year, but Thomas Yasmin. Thomas Yasmin's going to be on the team in some form or fashion because there's a roster exemption for him to practice because he is, he's your international player. So Yasmin's going to get the year to develop. He's a former rugby player, played the last few years at Utah. You find out where that athleticism can go. Is he going to be ready to do anything of value this year? Almost certainly not. But where is he a year from now? Does someone like him develop enough to where you say, okay, let's see where he goes? Look, you could argue Lucas Kroll showed enough flashes to where the Broncos were content with saying, hey, Greg Dulcich, bring him back, and if he's not healthy, we got Kroll. And then beyond that, a year from now, let's say you don't draft a tight end. It could be because Yasmin has taken the steps you want him to take. That's, sometimes development's a long-term process here. But for those looking for an immediate injection of adrenaline into the tight end position, it probably only comes from Greg Dulcich being healthy and being used as that joker in space.
It'd be a hell of a bonus.
It's a gamble. It's they're rolling the dice. And if he's not healthy, then you're seeing if Lucas Kroll can do that too. That's That's where your hope for not having the least productive tight end room from a pass catching perspective. That's where your hope comes from.
To quote Looney Tunes, you like gamble, eh? Well, we'll see what the Broncos can get out of these tight ends, but we'll see how you all can help us out and grow in our YouTube channel. About 50% of you that watch are not subscribed. So, Mace, how can they help us?
You can help by liking,
comments,
sharing,
subscribing,
and hitting that notification bell so that you
can never miss
vid. You like that little surprise
I do
interjection from me there, huh?
That's a little change up, right? A little change up to our
you can't throw nothing. You can't throw only fastballs. You can't throw any sliders. You can't throw any curveballs. You gotta throw something different. You gotta throw, ideally you're at least a 3-pitch picture. If you're a 2-pitch picture, you're not gonna get very far.
And I will trust you on that. He's Andrew Mason. You follow him on all the socials at Mace Denver. There's your changeup. And I am at Cecil Lammey, the name of the show.
Haven't seen that one in a while.
Orange and blue today. That's right. He's Mace. I'm Cease. OBT is a BFD. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned. And would you please stay frosty?